Welcome to the Lovecars on the Grid podcast, your global motorsport roundup with me, Tiff, Needell and Paul Woodman.
Welcome to Lovecars on the Grid, your global motorsport podcast roundup, where we look back on a weekend. Well, it wasn't packed full of motorsport. There's plenty happening, though. Exciting stuff. A couple of world champions were crowned. Max stirred the pot quite a lot in Formula One. Viva Las Vegas, Thierry Neuville, a long time coming for him. And it looks like Cadillac might be in Formula One in 2026. So the future is becoming very interesting. But I'm going to start, Tiff, with a bit of news, not news, but I just want with the gossip, what's going down, because Max is stirring the pot quite a lot with a few of his comments, and I think good for him. Yeah.
Well, I don't know. It seems a shame that he's had to say what he said, because everybody at Vegas, Max has had an incredible year. When he had the best car, he dominated, and when he didn't have the best car, he got the best out of it. We all take the mickey out of Perez, not getting through Q1 all the time. Maybe the car is that bad. Max has used his skills, and he's been faultless all year, to be honest. He's had a couple of dodgy overtaking manoeuvres. Mexico, still a couple of signs of the old Max. But it already started off when he was Adam Cooperman, really good Twitter follow, good insight journalist of Formula One. Came up with this story that Max said that, he hadn't had for 70% of the season, he didn't have the fastest car, sort of showing why he'd fought so hard. And I just tweeted back sort of innocently that, but fortunately for him, the 70% when he didn't have the best car, there were three teams fighting over those wins. There were six different drivers that won those last, 15 races. So that's why nobody really overhauled his, but he was lucky. If it had just been McLaren that tick the box, or Ferrari and ticks the box, and they'd use team orders, then maybe they would have won the championship, taken the title off him. But the fact that is the 30% of the season, he was on pole for all 7 races, or won 5 of them. So we were always saying then, weren't we, after 30% of the season, we always said, well, it's all over. Max has won this. But the fact that he didn't have the best car, which we agree, for 70% of the season, I just stated the facts, but all the Yerries, all the Max fans, British press, digging idiot, why is he hating Max? I didn't, I said, but he was slightly lucky. And if only one of those 3 teams had ticked the box, as we said, Leclerc or maybe Lando could have won the driver's title, but he was fortunate in a way that all 3 of them managed to sort of move forwards.
Well, you've been aggrieved with his comments that he said, because he said that he could have won in the Ferrari or the McLaren.
Yeah. He's followed the 30%, 70% up by this new quote today that he could have won it in a McLaren or Ferrari. Not Mercedes, he did admit. But why did he need? That's almost implying that,
Good for him. Stir the pot a little bit. I love it. Good on you, Max.
But everyone was patting on the back. Everyone was congratulating with it. Everyone was. He's had an amazing season. So why tell Lando and Leclerc, well, I could have won in your car?
Yeah, but Max is. But don't forget, English is his second language, or maybe even third language. But let's not forget that he's saying things, and it can be lost in translation a little bit because he's very blunt.
I think his English. His English is pretty good.
He's very matter of fact, and the fact is,
but also
he feels he could have won in both those cars. And
how do you quantify? How do you quantify what the best car was? You never. And the weird thing, we got to the Grand Prix report in a minute, is how it's. One seems to work at one track. Every weekend, it's Mercedes just dominated. People are saying it was cold conditions. Cold suits Mercedes. And sometimes even these great Grand Prix teams, all their boffins, they don't understand why they've got a good car this weekend and then a rubbish car the next weekend. So it's a funny old thing, isn't it, getting these cars to be consistently good?
Well, I think one thing for sure, 2025 is going to be epic. There are 4 teams genuinely that are going to fight it out. And Perez is going to be in place. There's no question about that. He's 249 points behind his teammate. That must be the biggest ever deficit in terms of difference in terms of
who
teammates.
Goes where? Do they offer him an RB drive?
No,
would he take it?
They just got to get rid of him.
Who comes in? But there's no one obvious to take the 4th Red Bull spot. They started talking about Colapinto, but I think Colapinto's sort of lost his crown a bit, lost his halo slightly. And maybe I think that'd be a huge, huge gamble to put Colapinto in anywhere. There's Isaac Hadjar, the Frenchman, upset you with his radio manner, but he's the most talented. he's the leader on the Red Bull, the talent tree of talent, as it were. So if they kicked out him completely, then I don't know who they go. I'd put Isaac Hadjar in. I can't see anyone else myself. So would he accept an arm? It's interesting, but they've said, haven't they? The directors of Red Bull have said that after Abu Dhabi, the directors, the team directors, shareholders will sit down and decide on Checo's fate.
He's gone. He's gone. And if he hasn't gone, my goodness, there's something very strange going on. He's gone.
But then they have to put Yuki in, don't they? And they're still not putting Yuki. Yuki has to go in. Yuki just has to go in the Red Bull.
Is he that good? He's certainly not going to push Max. No one's going to push Max.
Better than Lawson now, isn't he? He's put Lawson back in his pot. I mean, it's quite fun, these sort of little driver battles going on. And, of course, it's about 10 teams next year. There's about 11 teams in 2026. Not Andretti. We didn't want Andretti. We don't like Andretti's. Oh, we like Cadillac. Yes, Cadillac. And apparently the Cadillac boys were in Las Vegas, and I think who's the McLaren man's met them and saw Zach was saying they're all smiling around. So it looks like they've done a provisional deal. I mean, how much is it going to cost Cadillac? Because every time Andretti said we'll pay the penalty, because they had to pay, what was it, 10 million to each team to come and join the club, and then it was 30 million to each team to compensation for the prize money they're going to take away. There's no mention of how much money Cadillac going to have to pay the greedy 10 that don't really want anyone else in. But I'm excited. We're going to get 2 more drivers. That's the big thing for me. We need 24 cars on a grid just to have more drivers having a chance to show their skills. But so it's a caddy for 2026.
Where do you get 24 from?
I think it should be 24. The Cadillac will make it 22. That was the old number, from back to the 80s and 90s. Most grids, most tracks are licensed for 24 Grand Prix cars, apart from Monaco, which was only 20. So I'm not sure what they're going to do with the old Monaco rule that used to be only 20 cars. But in those days, there were 30 cars turning up, of which I was one, failing to qualify, but that's another story.
Not quite like Silverstone catering with 50 cars on the grid.
No. But it was a good Grand Prix in Vegas. I mean, there was lots of spectacle. It wasn't the most exciting race in the end. All about tyres, wasn't it? It was tyres. But it was the Williams story early on that we all love Williams so much. And, with the Brazil going home with 2 destroyed cars, and the mechanics built 2 new cars, and they all had the latest spec parts. And then Q1. Well, in Q1, in FP3, Albon was 7th and Colapinto 8th. 0.3 slower than Albon, which is quite a lot around Vegas where the times are very tight. But then they were 7th and 8th in free practice 3. And then Q1, Colapinto got 9th. That was impressive. So he was up there. But Albon messed it up. He said he got traffic on the way out or made a mistake and track limits. So Albon was out in Q1. And that's blow number 1, isn't it? When you were 7th in FP3 to be out in Q1. Yeah. Along with the 2 Aston Martins, Bottas and not Zhou. Zhou had a bit of a good weekend to cheer himself up as he leaves Formula One. And of course, Checo Perez, down he was again.
Standard. It is, sadly, it's standard, isn't it? Most other weeks it's out in...
But then the Williams woe continued in Q2 and Colapinto. When we all saw it on televisions, that wreck scraping down the wall, and we saw what colour it was, and thought, no, Williams. They built another new car overnight.
Incredible. Those boys are earning their money, aren't they, the pit crew?
Of course, Colapinto, it's really ruined his sort of image a bit, from being this really good rookie coming in and doing so well. But as I said, Albon's just had a bad few races as well. I think Colapinto's maybe looked better because Albon's just had some off races and things haven't gone his way. But the wreckage of the car, and apparently he was on a really good lap that would have got him into the top 10. He was on a quick lap.
Yeah.
And just such a tight, he was sort of off put because it was one of the Alpines ahead of him. And you can imagine because he's thinking about the slip, he's thinking ahead of the next corner, how he can slipstream and use it. Just clip the wall.
So I'm glad you said that because they didn't even mention that on TV. They just always just clip the wall. But it does, as a driver.
There's something going on.
As a driver, you see it and it's in your peripheral vision. And you're thinking, when am I going to get past it? Is it going slow?
It could have been a bit of dirty air even, it's changed the balance of the car, and it was just such a shame for the poor lad. So he was out. Who else went out? Zhou got 13th. K-Mag, and Liam Lawson, of course, didn't make the top 10. He was definitely having an off weekend. He hadn't raced there before. I suppose the advantage that Yuki had, that he'd been to Vegas before. And then Q3, Russell, an amazing pole position. Lewis cocking up completely. Down in what?
He doesn't do that very often, does he? No. Over the years, he's normally.
So is he going off the ball? That's all a question marks, But
it is a question
in the race. Well, no.
I was going to ask you. So, what do you think? Because I'm a massive Lewis fan. Lewis, my favourite driver, but George has really been much better than him.
Yeah,
the points difference doesn't look it because George had a few unlucky events,
but some
races.
Russell's more on the edge. He's had a few mistakes as well, George, hasn't he himself? But
has Lewis lost it? Has he lost that little edge that he had?
So. I mean, that snap of oversteer, you're feeding in the throttle. We saw on the onboard, they're going around a long right-hander where and every sort of millimetre of the throttle adds another 50 horsepower. And, he just broke traction, and... It's so very hard, I can imagine. I mean, me in that Super Formula car, and realising how quick these things are going and how the power comes in firmer and firmer, a little bit more throttle. So he just added a tiny touch too much throttle and broke traction at the rear. And then, of course, that's the one lap gone. He made a mess of the first run, of course, he went off up the escape road and he locked up.
Yeah,
maybe George was pressuring him. Maybe he felt the pressure from George.
There's a lot of speculation online about Mercedes sabotaging the car and making him look bad. They're not going to do that. They want both drivers to do well. So, although Toto did say something after the race, which is a bit weird, and again I think is lost in translation a bit. He said George was spectacular, and Lewis, who we all think was one of the best drivers he's ever done, certainly this year. Said, Lewis had a strong car. So George was spectacular and Lewis had a strong car, which is a bit odd.
Lewis was on it when he was putting fastest lap after fastest. He was trying to catch George, but then he made that one mistake, didn't he? Shortcut the chicane, and he was pushing it probably too much and then realised he wasn't going to catch him. Of course, the other thing about Q3 was the McLarens being off the pace. They were sort of quick in one of the F3 practices early on, but they didn't like the conditions. Once again, Lando put Oscar in his place. Well, it was 6th and 8th on the grid. Close, very close by 10th and nothing less than. And then Pierre Gasly got just hooked up a perfect lap in an Alpine.
Wasn't that amazing?
Stuck it third. He's one of the nicest guys. I met him, had a long time speaking to him at a London charity event. He's a real nice guy. Sainz outdid Leclerc qualifying. Old Carlos is still... sticking the dagger in. You bastards, you dropped me.
We'll come on to Carlos a bit more in a moment in the main race.
Max fifth. Max doing the best in what isn't the best car at the moment. We agree, and doing a great job to get fifth. Yeah, but the race was all about tyre deg, wasn't it? Which is always a bit disappointing when he pushed too hard, so his tyres have gone off. Alonso started on the red softs, hoping to be probably a pace car at lap 1, and he was in for 4 laps. He was in for new tyres. And even the mediums, all the leaders, they're all coming in after just 10 laps. It's a bit confusing if you're a spectator and you haven't got a radio in, and all these cars are coming in and out of the pit lane.
I did think laps. I was watching it because you keep going on about, you can't keep track of this race or this race, but actually this one was a hard one. Unless you're on it, you really didn't know what was going on. Yeah. At one stage, Perez was third. I was thinking, my goodness, how's he got there? And then I missed the fact that he hadn't pitted yet. But...
Well, I think he started on whites. He started on hards, didn't he? That was why. So he started on hard. But you kept on seeing the leaders coming out in the middle of Yuki and K-Mag and who's where. And it is until they've all had that second stop, the real understanding of where the race is headed is hard to spot. I mean,
that's where that level head of Harry Benjamin is very good on the commentary. I like he's got a very holistic view of things.
But in the end, they all came in 2 by 2s. Well, apart from Perez, of course. So two Mercedes cruising ahead of 2 Ferraris, Max in the middle, not in the middle after the Ferraris, then cruising ahead of the 2 McLarens who are well behind. Then Hulkenberg good for, I think they got points ahead of Alpine now by Hulkenberg finishing 8th. It's very close for 5th place for some of the manufacturers between Haas and Alpine. Yuki a good 9th and Perez recovered for 10th. And then, of course, we had Leclerc going mental on the radio, which was, I think if the FIA had actually recorded that or had transmitted it, now the Fs and Fs and Fs, he would have been fined about £10 million and banned forever by the new no swearing law. But I understand, but, he said with the pitting, he said, well, obviously, Carlos will give the place back. They told him he would. And then the lap out, when he's on his fresh tyres, not wanting to push him too hard, Sainz sails past him.
Well, it was a bit more, wasn't it? It was, let him pass. First of all, before the pits, it was let him pass. And then he said he let him pass. And then that was supposed to be turn 1. And then he said, okay, I'll do it at turn 5. So, and all the analysts are jumping onto it and saying that Carlos cost Ferrari 2nd and 4th place. Yeah. So, and that's why it was. And then you had all the debacle about Sainz coming into the pits as well. And then he was over the line. No penalty. Not even. It didn't even flag up saying that it's under investigation. So if you didn't see it, Carlos Sainz was told to go in the pits. Last second, they said don't go in the pits. So he crossed that very prominent white line that you're not supposed to cross. And there's not even an investigation about it.
I've never known Martin Brundle be so insistent. Penalty was going. And of course, going back to the Ferrari thing, of course, Leclerc still has a mathematical chance of overtaking Lando for 2nd in the championship. But he's 21 points behind, which he shouldn't catch Lando, but he could. So there's an element of getting 2nd in the points table that Ferrari seemed to have missed out on.
Well, Zach Brown jumped in on this as well after and said that Carlos is not a team player. It's really and he analysed it. Zach Brown's very intelligent with his, and some people were jumping onto him saying, no, this is wrong. And then Zach would say, no. And he'd write this very articulate, long response. So he jumped in and said, this is not what you do. He cost Ferrari 2nd and 4th place. And Zach Brown put that publicly as well. And a lot of people were saying that's why Carlos is at Williams and not a Red Bull, and he's not a team player.
And also Ferrari chasing McLaren for the constructors.
Absolutely.
They got the gap's down. What's the gap's down to 24?
Absolutely.
They gained 12. They gained 12 points. They cut the gap by 12. So it could have been more, as you were saying, if they hadn't mucked themselves up. It's interesting, Williams. I don't know how. I honestly wouldn't know how to predict Albon versus Sainz. I've got huge belief in Albon.
Yeah, me too, actually.
But whether he's been pushing it too hard, he's had a lot of bad luck. He's been taken out, and
me too.
But you remember that crash in Mexico where we both agreed, he saw Ollie Behrman. He had plenty of time on a free practice lap just to ease off it a bit, But he wanted to get that lap in, and it's maybe been a bit too desperate. But
we'll do that in a few weeks' time. We'll do our lineup for 2025.
What we think is going to happen.
Yeah. Do you know my biggest bugbear for this whole Grand Prix over the weekend, which is it was semi-entertaining, and I know they changed it for next year, but fastest lap. Lewis Hamilton was unbelievable. Yeah. Fastest lap after fastest lap after fastest lap. Lando Norris got all the time in the world. Pits, put new tyres on. I guess fast lap.
It's going.
I know, but I don't mind the fastest lap. I don't mind someone getting a point for fast lap. But they shouldn't be able to pit within the last 2 or 3 laps.
It's going. You can relax now. We all think it's silly. But it's going. And did you see the clips of the F1 film with what's his name staggering from a wreck car, collapsing?
Yeah, so they were filming this new Formula One Brad Pitt film, Sonny, whatever his name is, and when have you ever seen a driver get out of a car he's so hurt and staggered, and there's smoke bellowing around, and he just faints with all his helmet on. Oh, that is gonna be bloody awful. I'm telling you now that it's gonna be so bad. The things like celebrating, waving to the crowd with your gloves on, your helmet off, and your gloves on. You just don't care.
They don't care about us real fans. And don't forget, Liberty, they don't care about real fans. That's what's it called? Video film, which I never watch.
Drive to Survive.
I
stopped watching that after AD21. But so another thing that came out over the weekend, Max Verstappen was again very opinionated, and he was saying about these experts, these people that probably never driven a fast car, let alone a Formula One car, and saying that Formula One cars are very easy to drive. And I think we've said that they're a bit easy to drive now, but Danny Kvyat said exactly the same thing. They are so hard to drive, and we don't give them enough credit for that. And Max said it's hard because he was sticking up for Colapinto. He said that he was on the limit, and they are so hard to drive. So maybe my opinion has changed. Listen to actual people that drive them as opposed to me.
I think the thing is, they're much easier to operate than they used to be because you've only got 2 pedals, no little gear lever, but they're very hard to drive right on the limit. It's finding they're hard to drive when you go half a second quicker. I think if you're half a second slower, they could just cruise around, as they do. Often when they're conserving tires and they're full of fuel early on, they are cruising around. They're not right on the limit pushing them. But to get that last half a second or 2/10 is really, really hard. They are right on. And when it's a heavy car on the edge, it's a really hard car to judge where the edge is without stepping over it. So
there's a lot to process as well, because you're very good. I'm okay, but you're exceptional at speaking and driving at the same time. But there's a lot to process for these guys because they've got so much going on. The sensory overload with the steering wheel and the modes and all different things. But not like the old days when you were just changing with your little H.
Implying that was easy, are you?
No, I'm saying it was hard.
Not even a rev limiter either. So if you missed a little flick of your wrist going from fourth to fifth, wow, and your valves have gone and you're out of the race.
Did you ever do that?
I might have done. Actually, funny story in Japan, because the old rev counts, the mechanical rev counts, if mechanical's the right word, they had a reset button on the back of the rev counter, and there was a red line, so it showed where you'd gone to. So say your rev limit in your Formula 2 car was 10,000 revs or something. You went whoa, and it said 11. You didn't know if you damaged the engine or not, but you then slow down. I used to take my glove off. We got one of my favorite co-drivers up in Japan saw me because he was on the side of the track. I saw you taking your glove off, Tiff, behind the dashboard to reset the rev counter, then slowly accelerate up to 10,000 to the limits and then go back into the pits and say, I missed a gear.
Well, you've got all these amazing stories of Formula One and Le Mans and all these sort of supercars, sports cars. I've only got Caterham really, but a few times I changed from fourth to third.
That was the worst. Yeah,
I know it's horrible, but they're bulletproof. These little Caterhams, they just kept going. But anyway, dear. So
Japan,
overall,
the other world champion. The overall, congratulations, Max. Brilliant. It was a brilliant season, and you don't need to claim you could do it in another car or do
Why not? Let him do what he wants. Have his moment. He was having a few drinks.
He's insulting his colleagues. He was insulting his colleagues.
No, he was stating a point. He was stating a fact that I actually agree with on that basis.
For a change.
But yes, for a change with anything with Max.
Hey, another worthy champion crowned in Japan, Thierry Neuville, who everyone loves. He's been winning World Rally Championship events for 10 years. He started 15 years ago when he was 21 years old. And a talent straight away. And he was like a mercurial Max Verstappen of rallying when he arrived. Everyone thought, this is the boy. And he came second in the World Rally Championship in 2013, 16, 17, 18, 19. Wow. So, and then he was third in 2021, 22, 23. And finally, this year, he's been crowned at World Rally. And I think everyone in the World Rally Championship is delighted that a guy he's a very pleasant Belgian, and that's really two Belgians champion. I just realised that because although Max is Dutch by his racing licence, he's Belgian, his mother, so he's as Belgian. I think he was born in Belgium, Max, so he's very much a Benelux boy. We'll call him Benelux. So the Benelux, that's a good headline. Benelux boys take crowns. We need another B. Benelux boys. Anyway, so it was a funny one because Bonanza, Benelux boys Bonanza. So the Japan, he only needed about 10 points or less than that, 5 points, I think, to seal the championship. And the only person that could catch him was Tanak, his teammate, Hyundai teammate, who led the rally. A fantastic day. Thierry had a terrible first day when his turbo packed up. And crawled round like a road car, and he was like 7 minutes off the lead. But it didn't matter; he could still get enough points to win. And then Tanak, on the last day, with a 38-second lead on the first stage on Sunday, had this huge shunt, and there was a bit of dirt when I saw the onboard, and he just understeered wide, and maybe didn't cut the corner. The trouble is nowadays, you don't know how much the drivers in front of you cut a corner, how much mud and stuff's going to be out across there was a tarmac road. And he just understeered slightly offline, got two wheels on the dirt, hit a pothole, ended up going end over end on his nose, destroyed his hind eyes. He was out, which allowed Elfyn Evans to cruise to his first win of the year, which is great for Elfyn. He's had a terrible time. In a year, he probably thought he'd win the championship. So he had his first win of the year. And the big excitement, really, it was about they're all quite spread out. at the top of the table. Ogier had punctures, and so did Katsuta, his teammate, the other Toyota boy. But the thing with the Manufacturers' Championship became exciting.
Exactly.
They arrived at the super special. What do they call it? The power stage, where there's extra points, equal on points.
Yeah.
But with no Tanak, Hyundai were a bit one-handed, one-armed. And by winning the special stage, Ogier with Alfred Evans third, with Thierry Neuville second in that, and they just got enough points to beat Hyundai for the manufacturer's crown. So in Japan, the Toyota boys are obviously very happy.
And they've announced their lineup for next year with no Robin Perez.
Well, Robin Perez coming back to a full season, isn't he?
Yeah,
full season, him, Evans, and Katsuta.
Yeah,
then Ogier sharing a car with the Formula 2 champion, as I like to call it.
The WRC guy.
Pajari, I think.
Yeah.
So that's good. Nice. Their Formula 2 champion. Formula 2 champion gets on the Grand Prix grid. That's how it should be every year.
Yes, I agree. I'd love that. But again, it's that safe pair of hands, I suppose. I went with Thierry Neuville. Did some laps, remember, earlier in the year?
Yeah.
In Sardinia. Wow. I know they're all on it and they're all amazing, but just like you said, super, super nice guy as well. Yeah. So congratulations.
I know he lived through all those years. When he spent all day Saturday going around with no power, he must have been thinking, surely not. But yeah, he put on a very brave face in the interviews during that day. When Thierry, can you fix the car? I don't know, maybe. And Thierry, you're going to lose the championship, maybe. So yeah, I mean,
they're very chilled, aren't they? These top drivers are super chilled. And maybe Hadjar's not so much. No, I'm joking.
But the rally boys, all the rally boys, I can't think of a sort of who's a sort of angry rally driver. They're all because they live such an amazing life together and live in a dangerous sport. I mean, that's another thing that rallying still is very much, way more dangerous than being a Grand Prix driver. But they're also charming and likeable and nice. Harry Vatten and Roger Clark from Britain. And
speaking of which, I think Richie Burns, I think I saw something anniversary of his death today.
Yes, sadly. And he's winning the championship as well. I think he won the championship the same sort of time of the year as he sadly passed away.
Yeah. And Defender, so the bowler, they've announced they're going to do Dakar 2026 in a works car.
Are you in the team after your amazing performance? Surely they're snapping you up. You were third in class. Third in class on your debut in Iceland.
That was more of a rally raid. It was 550 kilometers, but
you proved your worth.
Notice I always talk about the stuff that I've done okay in, not the stuff that I failed miserably in. We were just talking about that off air. We've got a little motorsport special coming up for Amazon Prime, and talking about one of the things that sadly is going to rear its head that is not my fondest memory in the world. That's it. What's coming out next week?
They're all so it's off the Middle East now for the final two Formula Grand Prix rounds, where it's just all about the constructors' championship and whether Leclerc can catch Lando for second. There's a Formula 2 finale, but
it'd be interesting to see
who's won the Formula 2 championship.
It will be interesting.
Championship over.
Going back to Formula 1, it will be interesting to see what drivers who wins in the. Obviously Red Bull. Max has beat Sergio, Lando's beat Oscar, Charles, but the George and Lewis one still is going. There's a couple of others that are quite tight as well, but that's always interesting. The drivers as well in the teams.
I'm trying to decide if the Formula 2 champion's been declared. I think he has. Can't remember. Anyway, so Formula 2 support and Formula 1 Academy. Abby Pulling should hopefully win the Formula 1 Academy, and she's got 2 races. And she's going to, if he wins that, gets a GP3. She'll be back home racing in Britain next year. And then the real test starts for Abby Pulling. She's done brilliantly so far in the feminine-female series.
Do you like her commentary?
Sorry, what?
Do you like her commentary?
Her commentary. Has she done one, Abby Pulling?
Yeah, she's done a bit, I think, with Alex Brundle. I think she's done a few different things.
That's the other girl that manages her, helps her.
Abby, I'm sure Abby's done a few guest little things as well.
Maybe. Anyway, Formula 1. Of course, Qatar, will it be hot? Will they all die of overheating? because they haven't got the cool suits this weekend. I think it's for next year, that rule, isn't it? So they haven't got them. Qatar was the really hot race where they're all collapsing afterwards. So a big test for stamina.
Maybe that's where they got that Hollywood thing from, where Sonny, whatever his name was. Yeah.
It's also an awful track limits track, Qatar, and there's loads of flat curbs and loads of S-bends and loads of running wide at crucial corners. So anyway, we will watch it as always and enjoy it and talk about it in a week today.
Good stuff. Thanks for joining. We'll see you next week.
Bye all.